No, it won't work.
Really?
Yeah. I once tried to get.
Training that we got emails about.
Well,
And we'll do all
I'm
the
telling
training.
you, your eyes.
I'd have mercy.
On our training email, there's something.
I don't want,
I was the wrong one, like a little.
I haven't looked at it.
And she had
Access
like.
to the account, I'm not sure she's gonna be out of town, I'm gonna be, I'm not, I don't know that I'll have access to it. So it's not big deal. But that's
When
hard to
is it?
find out. I think it is the.
Did it come through your,
On the
vehicle?
town email. So it's,
I have to get that set up, I haven't got it set up yet.
they set it all.
Good afternoon, everyone. If you will silence your phones if you haven't done so.
You hadn't said it yet.
Right on cue. You're fine. I'd like to welcome everyone to the July 1st organizational meeting in the regular agenda. I'm also honored to welcome two of our new recently elected town officials, James Jimmy Anderson and Amanda Pillion. At this time, I will call the meeting to order. Mr. Morini will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our next item on the agenda is the election of the mayor for the town of Abington. At this time, I will take nominations for that seat.
Yes, I would like to nominate Derek Webb for mayor.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? No discussion. At this time, I'll take roll call. Mr. Anderson?
Here. Present. Aye,
Okay.
yeah.
Ms. Pillion?
Aye.
Ms. Quetch?
Aye.
And Mr. Webb?
Aye.
Mr. Webb, welcome, Mayor, and I will let you take over the agenda.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I would like to say, I'm just astounded and, it's my pleasure to serve with these guys and gals sitting up here. Just wonderful people and we're just so happy to be in the place we're in. I'd also like to thank, them for bestowing the confidence in me, to take over as the mayor. It's not, easy shoes to fill. And I'd also like to thank all of my supporters throughout the past couple of years. Of course, without the voters and the citizens, it wouldn't be possible to serve on council. And of course, my lovely wife and daughter sitting in the crowd, I'd like to thank them because it's not easy giving up that family time and spending time away from home. But thank you guys so much, and I certainly will do my best to do the best of my ability, the mayor duties. Having said that, the next item on the agenda is election of vice mayor, and at this time, I'll open up the floor for nominations.
I nominate Ms. Quetch for vice mayor.
Do I have a second? You second that?
Yeah, second.
All right. So we've got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. Kim, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Ms. Pillion?
Aye.
Ms. Quetch?
Aye.
And Mr. Webb?
Aye. Congratulations, Vice Mayor Quest.
Thank you, and I'm also honored, and it's a privilege to serve as vice mayor. And I appreciate your support. I'll do the best I can. Thanks.
And I'm sure you do a great job. Moving right along, the next item on the agenda is appointment of town manager. At this time, I'll open up the floor for nominations, the position of town manager.
And I would like to nominate Jimmy Moraney for town manager.
Got a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, any discussion? All right, hearing none, Kim, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Ms. Pillion?
Aye.
Ms. Quetch?
Aye.
And Mr. Webb?
Aye. Moving right along, next on the agenda is appointment of town treasurer. I'll open the floor for nominations for town treasurer.
I nominate Tammy Baldwin.
All right, we have a motion. How about a second?
I'll second that.
All right, any discussion? Hearing none. Kim, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Anderson,
Aye.
Ms. Pillion,
Aye.
Ms. Quetch,
Aye.
and Mr. Webb.
Aye. Moving right along, next we have appointment of town clerk. And I'll open the floor for nominations.
I would, yeah,
Open up-
Go ahead, go ahead.
Make motion that we accept Cameron Bales.
Oh, we're on the clerk.
Oh,
Yeah,
on
you're
the
fine.
clerk, oh, I'm sorry.
You're fine.
Can't do everything.
You can have both of them.
He would make a good clerk.
You
but
make
Kim's
both,
better.
of them. You do good.
Okay.
Kim,
yeah,
All right, got a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, Kim, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Anderson,
aye.
Ms. Pillion,
Aye.
Mrs. Quetch,
Aye.
and Mr. Webb.
Aye. Moving right along, we now have the appointment of the town attorney. I'll open the floor
And
for
I will make
nominations.
that motion.
Got a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Kim, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Anderson.
Aye.
Ms. Pillion,
Aye.
Ms. Quetch,
Aye.
and Mr. Webb.
Aye. All right, so we're on the item I, appointment of one member of council to the following boards, commissions, and committees. I would like to preface this by saying that my personal wish is to get more citizens involved. So on any of these committees and commissions that, and this of course is just my opinion, but any of these committees and commissions that the bylaws and the code doesn't require a council person, I would really love to see citizens nominated to these boards and commissions. I just think, from personal experience, I don't have the expertise in some of these fields that some of our fantastic citizens would have. So I just want to preface it by saying that because we do have a few commissions and boards and committees that it's not in the bylaws or the code that we have to have a council person on there. And then some we do. So having said all of that, the first commission that we're going to appoint is the planning commissions. I would open the floor for nominations for the planning commission.
I would like to nominate Mr. Anderson to the planning commission.
All right, we have a nomination. Do I have a second?
I would like to second that.
All right, a nomination and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Kim, if you'll please call the roll.
I'm sorry. Mr. Anderson,
Aye.
Ms. Pillion,
Aye.
Ms. Quetch,
Aye.
Mr. Webb.
Aye. Next up, we have, and I guess this is kind of what I was alluding to, but we have the Historic Preservation Review Board. I currently am the council appointee on that board. We also have the Tree Commission and the Sinking Springs Cemetery Commission. The first two, the Historic Preservation Review Board and the Tree Commission, there is no active requirement that you have to have a council person in the bylaws or the code. So I think if it's okay with the council, I would like to just kind of wait on those for right now. We're kind of in an interesting situation without having that fifth council person, and I don't want to throw all the committees full without giving them the opportunity, whoever that may be. So if it's okay with you, I would like to put off the Historic Preservation Review Board, the Tree Commission, and the Sinking Spring Cemetery Committee for right now. Is that okay with you guys?
It's okay.
Okay with you guys?
It's okay.
Good deal, good deal. So we'll skip down to number 5, the Mount Rogers Planning District Commission. Donna Quetch, Vice Mayor Quetch, is currently the council appointee, and I understand that she would like to remain on there through 2022, which is when her term expires. Do I have a motion to support that?
So move.
All right, do I have a second?
I second.
All right, got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, Kim, if you please call the roll.
Mr. Anderson,
Aye.
Ms. Pillion,
Aye.
Ms. Quetch,
Aye.
and Mr. Webb.
Aye. Next, we have the District 3 Governmental Cooperative. Previously, the council appointee was Mayor Craig, and I'll open the floor for nominations at this point in time.
I would like to nominate Mr. Anderson.
All right, got a nomination. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Excellent. Nomination and a second. Do I have any discussion? Hearing none. Kim, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Anderson,
Aye.
Ms. Pillion,
Aye.
Ms. Quetch,
Aye.
and Mr. Webb.
Aye. All right, blistering right along. Next up is the Tourism Advisory Committee. Previously, that was held by Cindy Patterson, Vice Mayor Patterson, and we do need to open the floor for nominations at this point in time.
I'd like to nominate Ms. Pillion.
All right, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Excellent. A nomination and a second. Do we have any discussion? All right, hearing none. Kim, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Ms. Pillion?
Aye.
Ms. Quetch?
Aye.
And Mr. Webb?
Aye. Next, we have the Metropolitan Planning Organization. And Jimmy, you and I had talked about this one. I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, the bylaw said that it was either the mayor or the mayor's appointee. Is that?
Yes, that's correct, Mayor Webb. What we got confirmation from the Metropolitan Planning Organization, the bylaws stated, because we were curious to know what those requirements were, since we did have an elected official on previously. Their bylaws state that either the mayor or his or her appointed person, it could be another council member, it could be a staff person. Based on my experience and knowledge of what the type of business that's conducted at those meetings, and they're during the day, I would recommend that we appoint a staff person to that position. Some of the other agencies or municipalities have staff people, whether it be Director of Public Works, Town Manager, some have the Planning Director. And I would recommend, if it's okay with the council, that we appoint Jason Boswell, the Director of Planning, to that position to attend those meetings.
Excellent, excellent. Do I have a motion to support that?
I'll make a motion that we accept Jason Boswell.
Excellent. Motion to accept Jason Boswell. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? All right, hearing none. Kim, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Ms. Pillion?
Aye.
Ms. Quetch?
Aye.
And Mr. Webb?
Aye. Next up, we have the Veterans Memorial Park Board. Previously, that was held by Councilman Al Bradley, and we do have to open the floor for a nomination.
I make a motion that we nominate Amanda Pillion.
Excellent. Motion to nominate Amanda Pillion for the for the Veterans Memorial Park Board. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? All right, hearing none. Kim, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Ms. Pillion?
Aye.
Ms. Quetch?
Aye.
And Mayor Webb? I
Aye.
apologize. It took me a moment to
Don't
catch up.
apologize, don't apologize. All right, moving right along, we've got the Rec Advisory Commission, and currently I am personally the council appointee, and my term is set to expire in 2021. I would like to remain on that commission if I can get a motion from the council.
I so move.
All right, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Excellent. Motion and a second for me personally to stay on the Rec Advisory Commission through 2021. Do we have any discussion? All right, hearing none. Kim, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Ms. Pillion?
Aye.
Ms. Quetch?
Aye.
And Mayor Webb?
Aye. We've got the Infrastructure Advisory Committee. Previously, that was held by Mayor Craig, and we do have to have a council appointee. I would open the floor for nominations.
I will nominate Ms. Quetch.
All right, we've got a nomination. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, got a second. Any discussion? All right, hearing none, if you'll please call the roll, Kim.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Ms. Pillion?
Aye.
Ms. Quetch?
Aye.
And Mayor Webb?
Aye. And last but not least, we've got the Finance Committee. Currently, Vice Mayor Quetch and myself are set to serve on the Finance Committee through 2022. And we had a discussion earlier, and I think we both would like to remain on there if it's the pleasure of the council. So if we have a motion to support it, I would entertain.
I so motion.
All right, got a
I
motion?
second.
And a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, Kim, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Ms. Pillion?
Aye.
Ms. Quetch?
Aye.
And Mayor Webb?
Aye. All right, so that completes the organizational meeting component of the tonight's meeting.
Mayor, I said one.
Sure.
Quick thing I wanted to comment on. I just wanted to let everybody know that we will have, in addition to those other appointments that we talked about holding on to.
Sure.
I just want to let everybody know that we also will be considering appointments to the Virginia Highlands Small Business Incubator as well on the August meeting,
Yes.
per their bylaws. So I just wanted to throw that out there and let you know.
Sure, and we'll advertise for that.
Yeah, we'll need to. I believe we'll need to advertise for those, Kim, right? Because we did that last year.
Okay.
And then I guess the only question is, do we want to go ahead and advertise for I'm sorry, those are, we're going to wait on those ones because we hadn't yet decided if we're going to appoint a council member to those,
Right,
or
right.
so you want me to wait and holding off on advertising for those just yet?
Yeah, mean, I think, it's okay to advertise the Historic Preservation Review Board and the Tree Commission. But
Okay.
I think the Sinking Spring Cemetery.
That's one. I think that one did say we had to have a council member on it. Okay. So if it's okay with the council, we'll just go ahead and advertise for those two, the Historic Preservation and the Tree Commission, and see what kind of interest there is, and then we can always make that decision at the August meeting if we want to appoint a citizen or a council member. So,
Absolutely.
does that make sense?
Is that
Okay.
okay with you guys?
Is that okay with everybody?
Excellent.
Okay.
All right, so we'll put off those till the August meeting. And having said that, I would adjourn the organizational meeting, and we'll move right into the regular meeting for the evening. And I would like to welcome the Town of Abingdon, Virginia council meeting. I certainly appreciate your interest, and I encourage public participation in our meeting. I'm glad to see that there's quite a few smiling faces out there. Of course, I can't tell because there's masks on everybody, but we do appreciate you guys coming out. It isn't always interesting, but we're going to try to make it interesting. And when we do get to the public comments section, we will ask that anyone addressing the council sign up, and of course, we've already got a signature. Approach the podium, identify your first and last name, and give your complete mailing address. Having said all of that, first item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I will move to approve the agenda.
All right, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, we've got a motion to approve the agenda and a second. Any discussion? All right, hearing none, Kim, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Anderson,
Aye.
Ms. Pillion,
Aye.
Ms. Quetch,
Aye.
and Mayor Webb.
Aye. And we are at the public comments section. We will hear public comments from the citizen registered to speak. Please come forward to the podium as your name is called. Restate your name, state your address, identify any organization you represent. Each speaker will have 3 minutes of comments, and you will be timed by the town clerk once the comments begin, and you will be given a cue when 1 minute of speaking time remains. Speakers are reminded that neither council members or staff will address questions or otherwise engage with speakers during the public comments period. And it looks like we have Mr. Billy Fullen signed up. If you'll please approach the council.
Good evening, and again, my full name, Billy Everett Fullen. I reside at 855 Wolf Creek Trail here in Abingdon, Virginia. And if you want to send anything to me by mail, please send it P.O. Box 74.
Understood.
Abingdon, Virginia, 24212. First of all, I'd like to congratulate each of the two new council members, Mr. James Scavo Anderson, which I've known all my life, and he is where I go to church. We see one another quite often, and I believe this is Amanda Pillion. Not familiar with her, but glad to have you as a town council member. And again, for each and every one that is here, and I believe that you have a process to fill a vacancy, and I'm looking, is that going to someone going to be elected or appointed for that? I would like to know that. And then also too, my main concern for addressing the town council is, as I'm sure we all know, that in the last month that there has been a great social, I would say, unrest. And it has, I believe it's not only nationwide, but it's worldwide in the protest. But my main concern is that, I believe it was on the news last week concerning the statue up here at the Washington County Courthouse. And I'm assuming that that is property of the courthouse, but it is in the town of Abingdon, which concerns, I believe, all of us. And so what I want to know is the town council are going to make a statement or proclamation concerning this statue? And again, I believe the statue's been there since, I believe you heard him say, 1906. And To be honest with you, I looked at it, never have been over to see what's on, what's written, and I come to know that it is a statue of a Confederate soldier. And so I believe that some professor at the University of Virginia is seemingly wanting it to be removed. Again, it is a Confederate statue, but all statues were Confederate, Union, black, white. It is an inanimate object. It does not have, cannot do anything, cannot say anything. I believe if we, I believe there's a scripture maybe in Psalms 115, somewhere along in there, about statues. They have eyes, they can't see, mouths, they can't speak. So it can do no harm to anybody. So I would like to see a statement from the council as your, what your view is on that, how if someone comes to you, if you're gonna stand for it or be against it. And so my view is that even though it's a Confederate statue, it can't harm me. The biggest thing that I'm concerned about is these folks walking around here in suits, has a tie, or whatever it is. Those are the ones that I feel. But that statue, the only thing that I can say about the statue, this is a sort of on a lighter matter, in the early sixties, that it was a winter that was very, very cold for several days. And they said it got so cold that soldier put his weapon down and stuck his hands in his pocket. So that's the biggest thing that I know about that statue. So I would like to hear something from the council concerning this statue. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I believe that's the only person we had signed up for public comments. So,
Mr. Will.
I didn't get a chance to sign up, can I speak?
Ms. Davis, she wants to speak. She said she didn't get a chance to sign up. She got that.
yeah, if you'll approach the,
Good evening, my name is Donna Bailey. I am at P.O. Box 541, Abingdon, Virginia. And first of all, I just wanted to congratulate the new members of the council. And I am very excited to look at what is going to be done in the town in the near.
I can't hear you, Donna.
Can't hear you.
Before that, I can't hear you.
You might want to pick up the mic, maybe.
Hold it closer.
Still ringing, so.
Test.
I think it's right.
Okay, I'll start over. Donna Bailey, Post Office Box 541, Abingdon. First thing I wanted to say is congratulations to the new members of the board. And I'm really excited about the things that hopefully we're going to accomplish, things that we're going to change, and things that we're going to improve. And one of the first things I wanted to mention was economic development. And one of the things I think that we have known, we knew it from the bonding agencies probably 7 years ago, that we have put all our eggs in one basket, and that basket seems to be tourism. And we have kind of fallen on our sword, not of our own making, but just of, you know, the natural hazards of illness and the COVID. And I'm hoping that we will take an opportunity as a whole town, not just as a council, but everyone, to look at the opportunities we have. If you look at what the county government has done, they have partnered with a company that's since changed their name, but it was AD Voltage. They did wonderful studies, and they used those to bring in some more economic development and to somewhat diversify. They're a little bit too heavy in industrial development. We're too heavy in tourism. So I'm hoping we're going to take the opportunity to develop the tech park. Clean, high-paying jobs are a wonderful thing if you can get it. But you have to have somebody that's, you know, able to dedicate themselves to that to a certain extent. And if we could partner with Ms. Whitney Bonham Saluzniak, and also with AD Voltage, they have done the studies, and paid dearly for them. And more, they paid less than they might have from other agencies, but it was excellent information. They've done the groundwork. Now they can zero in on the town itself and that tech part and give us some diversity, so we don't get caught in a situation like this again. The next thing I wanted to mention was activities. We have quite a bit of course, seniors in this town, but we have a lot of mentally and physically handicapped people. I have personal friends who have children, who have adult children. The Highlands Community Services has day support programs, and now we're finding that they've shut everything down. And mentally handicapped people a lot of times have like a variance of the spectrum, autism, but they really thrive on routine, and they need activities, or they become, let's say that they'll slide in their behaviors. They'll become more aggressive, very frustrated individuals. I think everybody does without the right stimulation. So I would ask that we start really focusing and maybe have a citizen committee that will look at things for the seniors to have activities. I know Tanya's working on at least some park benches, and just to do things. A heated therapy pool is one thing that we have talked about ever since the Coon Center was opened. And it has never gotten on a list of things that we are going to achieve. So I would greatly appreciate that. That would help everybody, not for physical therapy use, but for anybody who wants to walk in there and help keep themselves healthy, and, you know, just anybody that needs it. So, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I don't think we have any other persons signed up for public comment, so we'll move right along to the approval of the minutes. We have the June 15th, 2020 regular meeting that we need to approve. And do I have a motion to approve those minutes, or do we have any corrections?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes for June 15th.
All right, and I'll second that, since at that time, Mr. Anderson and Ms. Pillion weren't seated at that time, so they, of course, weren't at the June 15th meeting as a council person. Do we have any discussion? All right, hearing none, Kim, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Anderson,
Abstain.
Ms. Gillian,
Abstain.
Ms. Quetch,
Aye.
and Mayor Webb.
Aye. All right. We don't have any proclamations tonight. We will skip down to petitions and public hearings. The first public hearing on the agenda is the proposed bond issue by the town in the estimated maximum amount of $2.5 million, which proceeds expected to be used to pay cost of constructing and equipping a recreational facility to be known as the Abingdon Sports Complex, serving the residents of the town. James Moran.
Yes, Mayor, if it's okay with you, we'd like to make some comments. David Rose is here to make the comments, and then if we can conduct the public hearing after that, and that way
Sure.
the public has an opportunity to hear the presentation.
Absolutely.
And I do want to preface Mr. Rose's presentation with a couple things. First, I believe we're still on track to bid the sports complex out next week. Correct, John?
It's going to be in the newspaper, Bristol Herald Courier Sunday.
Okay.
Along with other plan rooms regionally.
Okay. And we're going to bid that out for a 45-day period. And then and I'm sorry if I'm repeating anything you're going to say, David, but I just wanted to throw that out there immediately. Second, I know at the previous council meetings we had discussed the $2 million in additional funds. I had some conversations with David Rose and his team, and at the time he had recommended that the town be a little bit more flexible and look to authorize up to $2.5 million. And being that we had a new council and I didn't want to hamstring the new council with any decisions that a previous council had made, I felt it was my responsibility to at least take the advice of the financial advisor, go ahead and publish the ad for the $2.5 million, and then obviously based on what this council wants to do, they can make that determination if they want to adopt that resolution with those additional funds or at any amount that they want to. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Rose.
Thank you, Mr. Brady, and Mr. Mayor, and members of council, and congratulations to y'all, all four of you, for new positions. And again, excited to have that leadership again. What I would like to do this evening is talk about basically the document that you have in front of you. It's up on the screen for anyone who would like to review it. With that said, we also have a second document, which is some financial policy guidelines, and I'll explain that as we go along in a few moments. So if we could, just on page 1 there, I'd like to reintroduce Davenport and Company, of which I have been a partner of for some 23 years now. We have looked at your town budget for '21, which of course started today, and we've had some observations. I'm also going to talk about that very briefly. We've also reviewed your debt profile and been a part of that, and have some existing policies, and these will be some recommended proposed amendments, if you would, some add-ons, because the last time we did this was back in 2016, so it's been 4 years. We like to do it every 2 to 3 years. Seems as things change. Used to say we'd look at every 5 years. That's way too long nowadays, given the world. And then lastly, talk a little bit about the Meadows project and some of the timing to move into some permanent financing, as well as the E911 investment. So if you would, on that next page, background, we've had the good fortune at Davenport, and prior to being Davenport, serving as your financial advisor. I've had that ability to do that. I go back 30 years now with the town, when the Coombs Center was developed and built, so we got involved in that. I got involved in that. That's when you got your first credit rating back then, and it was what we call a strong rating. It's not my terms, but it was an A-range rating from both Moody's and Standard & Poor's. They're really 3 agencies, but given the size and all, the 2 that have been the stalwarts, Moody's and Standard & Poor's, are the ones, and you had A ratings at the time, so just keep that in perspective. So then on page 3 here, as we move forward, back in, hard to believe, it was 2015, or 5 years ago, discussion started in earnest about the Meadows project. They moved on. We met with representatives of Food City and some other folks, and evolved to a funding strategy. At the time was based upon the expectation that the overall needs were roughly $10 million. We went back to the rating agencies because by the time 1990 had moved to 2016, that rating had lapsed. I mean, it ended. And so when we did that, we also got some policies in place, and you moved from the A range to AA range, where you are today. That's considered very strong. That's not my words. And you can see there, you're in that AA category by both Moody's and Standard & Poor's. And on page 4, you'll be able to see exactly where that puts you. So if you go to the next page, if someone would, and maybe get that moved. Okay. Okay, thank you. So you can see there that second tier, you're very strong, is just one notch away from being AAA, which is what the Commonwealth is and has been for many, many years. And again, that is the highest possible. I will tell you that there are very few, if any, towns really that are in that AAA level, so you are really at the very top of the towns in Virginia. Also, most towns are not even rated. Doesn't mean they're not credit worthy, but you are rated. And again, there's a few that we represent that are AAA, that are almost like small cities, Leesburg being one of them. That's a population of well over 50,000. So you can imagine, still called a town, bigger than many of the cities here in Virginia. So on the next page, we have looked at your 21 budget. I appreciate Stephanie Davis, who's your interim, and I've worked with Stephanie when she was in Powhatan a number of years ago. You're their financial advisor and have been. And excellent finance director. And then, of course, coming here on a part-time basis, working with your new town manager, relatively new. So one of the things that we have observed is that the budget does not rely on unassigned fund balance. That's important because we want to make sure that recurring revenues meet recurring expenditures. And if it doesn't, then that imbalance only creates a bigger problem potentially for the next year. We also noticed, and that was fine with us, that there was a sale of one-time property of some $600,000. But at the same time, you also have incorporated the concept of almost that equal amount, about $500,000 of cash funding of capital projects. That for us is a positive because if some things don't work out in terms of expected revenues, you could always segue over to borrowing. Not that we're suggesting borrowing, but you could always do that, and that $500,000 could again be reoriented or dedicated. So again, we're not recommending that, but that's a flexibility that we see, the rating agencies see, and that's how we think about that. The other thing we noticed is, again, you had some very strong reductions in revenues from sales, lodging, meals. It's the, of course, it's the flip side of what that the lady indicated just before. When you're so tourism and such a desirable town, the downside to that is when that slows down for any number of reasons. Again, COVID being the reason here, you have to adjust, and you have done that. You're going to see a recommendation I have in a few moments about policies to help us not be in the future as vulnerable to having to cut so drastically. I'll talk about that in a few moments. In addition, we do not anticipate federal and stimulus funding. Would love to see that. Hopefully that'll happen, but again, we're not expecting it. I think that's the safest thing to do. And then finally, the budget incorporates an increase in debt service based upon, hopefully, your approval of the going forward and financing the Meadows project. So that's already built in, baked into the cake, if you would, for the town. Okay, so I keep alluding to town policies. I mentioned that we worked with you in 2016, and here we are, 2020. And when I say 2020, of course, calendar year, but of course, fiscal year 21. With that said, we're going to make some recommendations in here. What we did, and what you'll see, well, let me stop by saying, we're not asking any actions this evening, of course, because you're all just getting this for the first time. What we are asking is that, hopefully you'll let me back in 2 weeks. That will coincide with us talking to the rating agencies, and we'll go into what we're talking to them about. Part of it's the Meadows, part of it's some refunding opportunities.
Hey, David, can I jump in here real quick? On your previous slide, I just wanted to make a clarification. On that last bullet point, any new debt is not included in this budget cycle. That's existing, because we had a discussion about how, I just want to make sure we clarified that, okay, maybe, could you do that for me? You explain it much more eloquently than I do.
I don't know about that. Again, so this is, again, as you said, this is factored in any of the existing debt that you have, your existing portfolio, any new debt we're able to be in subsequent years.
Okay.
Sort of layered all that in, both planning-wise and strategically. So anything that you will do in the, either not really tonight necessarily, but over the next few weeks into the next few months will not hurt the 21 budget, will not have to require an amendment, if you would, at least as debt is concerned. So you can point that out. You might have some other amendments that are unrelated.
Sure.
So what we've got then on page 6 is the policies. These policies, I think it's fair to say, have been solid for you. They have put you in good stead. But like anything else, they can be better. They can be a little more detailed, and they can be updated for what is the new financial environment. So with that said, I just want to highlight basically three fundamental things that you're gonna see in the policies. Number one is we have what's called an unassigned fund balance. That's a nice way of saying a rainy day fund, but it's not only a rainy day fund. The reason we have an unassigned fund balance in part is because your staff does not have a steady dollars that come in every single month that's equal, because that's not the way the government works for you or for anybody else. So what we need as a local government to operate and not have to do short-term borrowing to pay bills is we need a certain amount of dollars sitting in the savings account, if you would. That's in part why we need an unassigned fund balance. Second reason we need it is if we indeed have unexpected problems or something should happen, that is there as monies to be able to draw upon very quickly. Third reason we need an unassigned fund balance is because rating agencies and investors look to that as that safety net, that cushion. And by virtue of you having a solid unassigned fund balance, which right now says you'll have $5 million or at least 20% of fund balance to general governmental revenues, we're gonna recommend that you go to 35%, with the key point that you already are there. We don't have to go and pull any more dollars. In fact, you're a little bit above that 5 million. Hold me to this, Mr. Moretti, but I think we're around 5.4 million.
Approximately at the end of the fiscal year, we're
In
gonna
the
be somewhere
fiscal
between
year.
our
So
5.2 and
we are in a little better shape than you and I representing, but the idea here is to get that at that range and to be there. Yes, sir. Is any questions, Mr. Anderson?
No,
Oh,
you're
maybe, okay. But the second thing, this is new to you, is what I alluded to earlier, and that is we'd like to recommend that you create a budget stabilization fund. And that over the next 5 years, if not faster, as things start to get back to normal, which invariably they will, we put in about $1,250,000. So mentally, I was thinking about maybe $250,000 a year if you look at it. But you'll notice in here we're specific, or being, I should say the opposite, we're not specific about saying it needs to be $250,000 each year for 5 years. We stayed away from that purposely. We just want to say, as an aspirational goal, try to get roughly that kind of money. What's the thinking there? If you had to, which you did, reduce in effect the budget from the previous year to the tune of about $1.5 million as it relates to the lodging, the meals, the sales, our thinking is if we can have something almost akin to that type of reduction, that if, God forbid, something happens like, the Barter Theater has a fire, or something else, some other health crisis, or something happens that really closes down a lot of your expected revenues for a season or what have you, then you've got this stabilization fund there that allows you not to have to make such draconian cuts in a future budget. And that's the way we're thinking about that. So again, it's totally your call. You can change it, you could amend it, you could throw it out, but that's our recommendation, and you'll see it here in our policy recommendations. Lastly, for another day, another night, perhaps, we've been working closely with your staff on the sewer fund, which is what we call a self-supporting fund. What we mean by that is those that use the fund, user fees, pay for the sewer. If you don't use the sewer, you don't pay for it, meaning those types of things. So it's called an enterprise fund, it's self-supporting, it's solid. What we're recommending here is to further bolster that sewer fund policies, and you'll see it here, some of the recommendations that we have, including developing a multi-year, we'll call it capital improvement program, 5-year, with revenues and expenditures and some debt service coverage, meaning that there'll always be a positive, if you would, with regard to the revenues greater than the debt, greater than the expenditures and your debt service. That way, you're not in any way taking dollars from the general fund, which in a year like today, a year like this, I should say, the last thing you want to do, especially since the general fund is going to have itself cuts. So that's our thinking. So with that said, we'd like you to look at that. I would ask that y'all feel free to maybe bring any questions or what have you, through to the manager, who in turn can ask me, and I'll try as best as I can to try to answer those or to amend them. If it's too quick, to have an approval, or amendments to that, that's good for everyone at the next meeting, we certainly can always move that to a subsequent meeting, but we would like to try to get to a point where very quickly, within reason, we do have these approved or amended, because we want to tell the rating agencies, if we can, if you're in agreement, that we have strengthened and bolstered the town's policies, and that's the goal. So, that's my longest page, I promise. I'll move on here, so. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about your debt profile, excluding the Meadows project. Right now, when you exclude that, you have about 2.8 million of debt outstanding, all of which is paid off easily within 10 years. Just to give everyone a perspective, if you're fortunate to have a home and you have a $100,000 mortgage, most people have a 30-year mortgage. After 10 years, you basically have about 25% of the principal paid off. You have 100% of the principal paid off. So that has actually put you in a good position to potentially take on the debt for the Meadows project. Because again, effectively, all the debt is paid off in a few years. So that allowed us meaning the town, to add into the new debt. In addition to that, your annual debt service in 2021 through 24 fiscal years is relatively flat at around $600,000 a year. And then after that, it decreases to $200,000 and basically it's gone. So again, we have the ability to layer in the Meadows debt service and do that without creating some large spike. In addition, of course, the reason the Meadows project is being done is because there's an expectation that there's going to be some real new revenues. We'll talk about that in a minute. And the goal there will be those revenues, let alone the general fund, can help pay for, or more than pay for, the overall debt of the project. Finally, interest rates are very low in this portfolio that you have, yet we're at crazy rates. That's not a technical term, as you know, I'm not an economist, but crazy is what I'll say. So having said that, we have talked with staff and we've been looking at refundings purely to save money, not to extend the debt, just to bring interest rates down. And I will say that if rates hold in this general world that we're in, we think that it's a very strong possibility that we'll save some money, none of which is factored in. But again, it's the old don't count your chickens before they hatch, so that's what I'm thinking. All right, page 8. This is your debt portfolio outstanding. You'll notice, if you're a mathematician or even not, you'll notice that it says for the general fund, 10.3 million, but I just said 2.8. How'd that happen? That's because you'll notice there, the very first piece of debt, that's 7.5, that's tied directly to the Meadows project. So if you take that out, that's why we're showing that basically you have about 2.8 million of non-Meadows project debt, so it's not a typo. Then on the second part, revenue bonds, those are all tied to the enterprise fund, and that's a separate classification. The reason for that, again, is the water sewer fees go to, excuse me, the sewer fees, the revenues go to pay for that. That's how that works. Okay? So that's why it's broken out that way. All right, next page. Let's go back to the governmental debt that I was alluding to. I said to you it's about $600,000 for the next couple of years. You can see there, 604,202 to be exact this year, and that's already in your budget. Next year it drops down, continues to drop down, as I said, last couple of years, 200,000 or so of debt, it's all done. So, what we are looking at then is then layering in, putting in, if you would, that Meadows project debt, and refinancing some of this debt to only bring rates down, but we're not counting that. So let's go to page 10, if you would. Let's talk about the Meadows project. And by the way, I apologize, one of the things that we talked about, Mr. Morani and us, is the idea was to give you a variety of pieces of information as it relates to the things we're doing with you, have been doing. So if I seem like I'm jumping around to different topics, I am. Hopefully I'm not totally confusing everybody, but the idea is to give you a perspective, particularly our new council members, on where you stand and what's going on different things. So now the Meadows project, let's talk about that if we could. We have continued to talk to your development team on that. As your financial advisor, I think it's important to also point out that we do not comment on whether a project's good or bad, whether we're for it or against it. That's not our job, never has been. Like I said, in the 30 years I've worked with a variety of councils, my goal has only been to give you our best input on risks, potential rewards, consequences, what the cash flows might mean. That's the things that we try to do for the council, give you a sense of what we call best practices, just like the recommendations on policy guidelines, those keep within best practices. So as long as everyone understands, especially in the audience, that that's my role is, I'm not elected, I'm not here to tell you it's a good or bad project. I'm just here to tell you this is what the potential aspects of it mean financially and ratings-wise and all of that. So that's our role. So with all that said, the other thing we don't do is to make estimates on the reasonableness of, for example, the expected revenues in the project. Now, we've been in meetings before, some of you may have been, there were public meetings where we've had even the county treasurer, who I work closely with, Mr. Parker, he's been here, he's talked about some of these things and looked at some of the reasonableness of some of the various potential new tenants and what have you based upon other experiences, and I think that was very helpful to town council members and citizens to have a sense of, okay, if there's going to be this particular retail establishment, what do they typically look like in either other places in Virginia or Tennessee or even, nationwide. So all of that based upon those things, the estimated revenues at completion, FY '22, is anywhere from 1.1 to 1.25 million related to the project. Now, having said that, that is sort of the revenues. What we're expecting is that the debt service, the maximum annual debt service on this project will be about $800,000 a year. So there's a difference there, a cushion, if you would, of some 300,000 or some 400 plus thousand. The idea then is that if that cushion is not realized, then again, the goal here is that that 800,000 of debt service would basically be covered to a large extent by the new revenues, and you get a sense of all that. In addition, that 800,000 already incorporates a $2.5 million increase, if you would, from what was originally a $10 million permanent borrowing to now $12.5 million. So check that out. All right. Existing debt service of roughly $250,000 is already built into the '21 budget. That's because, again, that debt that was borrowed, the 7.5, already factored in. That's, I think, hopefully, Mr. Morandi, that's what we wanted to make sure they're clear. And then finally, though, when we do this with your blessing, if we do with your blessing, we expect to see another $250,000 to $500,000 in FY '22 and '23, that time frame, and then ultimately rising to the high of $800,000 in 2024. And again, why we set it up that way? We set up there with a cushion to hopefully see that all the project development would be more than done before we hit the max annual debt service of $800,000. So we did that purposely, and that's nothing new. So on page 11, this is, as best as we understand it, the schedule of the project. On or about July 5th, next week, bid advertised, we talked about. Mid to late August, that's that 45 days, the bids are received, some award, and the goal is sometime in the fall to begin construction. It's supposed to take about 6 months, give or take the weather, what have you. and be ready sometime next spring. And so with all of that said, our recommendation is to do the financing once those known bids are in, so we don't have to guess at what happens. And we would do the financing sometime in September, and I'll show you that, because I know the schedule in a moment. So, with that being said, on page 12, a little bit more here, now we move to how we're recommending what I just mentioned into all of this. So here we are today, July 1, and we'd like to have you again consider the introduction of the policies. That's the first thing. The second thing is to hold a public hearing, as you know, on up to $2.5 million. And the third is to hold a very separate public hearing on the 911 equipment, which is about $550,000. That would be done anyhow. The reason we'd like to make that separate is it's cleaner, and it will be put in part of the financing, but we're going to segregate that purposely so that can be paid a little differently. So again, that's important there as well. We are, again, asking you to adopt that bond resolution, which was put together by both the bond counsel that you have, which is sort of a specific law firm that's narrowly focused, and work with the legal counsel, with Mr. Bell, and we've worked with him closely, so hopefully look to his guidance on that. Then, on July 15th, basically 2 weeks from now, we're going to have conference calls with rating agencies. I would come down for that and would walk you, let's say you and staff through all of those calls and do that. Those typically last an hour, 2 hours, and we give them a lot of this. We show them new policies, proposed policies. We give them a sense of the finances, the budget, and all of that. And we expect that there'll be a status quo for the ratings. And if not, we'll certainly let you know that. If it's amended downward, we don't see in any way going upward. Frankly, if they did, that's wonderful, but in this uncertain environment, we would be more than delighted just to stay where we are, which is that solid AA category. So lastly, on page 13, with the schedule, your meeting is on the 16th. Again, I'd be here on the 15th with staff. The goal here would be that in July and August, we keep working towards the bond sale. We target mid-September roughly, and then close ideally at the end of September. There's no magic to that exactly, but the goal is to make sure that you have the bids, acceptable bids, that you're all comfortable with before we actually go to marketplace. That's our thinking. It makes the most sense to us. So what would we be going to the market for? That's page 14. This is several components. The sports complex, we have two parts. There is what we call a takeout of the existing Carter Bank line of credit. What do I mean by that? When we started this whole project to keep the cash flows in line and not to put extra burden, we did a $10 million line of credit with Carter Bank. Got a fixed rate there, and we set it up such as when we want to convert over to permanent financing, we could do that without penalty. And so that's what we have. We did last year $7.5 million, and now we want to do the final $2.5 million. So that's number one. The second part is the potential additional costs, $2.5 million. Again, that is your call. You may want to do none of it. You may want to do all of it. We'll find out basically what we need of that with regard to the bids. But at least from a resolution standpoint, we ask for that amount that Mr. Brown said. So that's $2.5 million. Then the E911 is basically at $550, and then the potential refunding of some bonds, $2.5 million. That's not new money, meaning that $2.5 million is part of that roughly $2.8 million that you already have outstanding. So I don't want to give the wrong impression that you're about to borrow $8 million of new money. You're not. You're basically looking at existing debt that's going to be hopefully converted, not extended again, just to lower the interest rate.
you, and I know this is probably a question you may not be able to answer at this point in time, but of that 2.5 that is already debt for the town, do you have any kind of estimation on what we could save if we lower interest rates? I mean, we're talking like a couple $100,000 or?
You know what, I think that's a great question, Mr. Mayor. I have some sense of that, yes.
I mean, I
think it's-
remember, you know, and I don't wanna put you on the spot, but when we capitalized on that 7.5 million the first time, it seems like we saved like 1.53 million in interest alone.
We saved a lot.
Yeah, it
I don't
was-
see anything like that, because again, we're just further shaving down. I'd like to be wrong, but I don't think so.
Okay.
We're not talking about having the relative amount on this.
Right.
So, but,
But since it's old debt anyways, we're gonna save money and that's all that matters, right?
only gonna do it
Okay.
if we save money.
Good deal.
If we don't, no reason to do it.
Gotcha.
So,
And
yes,
refunding is a fancy bond term for refinance, basically.
yes,
Gotcha.
it's one and the same.
Confusing term, but
Yeah, it's one and the same.
we're not giving them.
David, can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
On this chart, you have the total here is, and maybe, have you gotten through this chart yet? I don't think you have. Okay, I'm gonna let you get through it, and then,
I know what you're gonna ask.
okay, well, go ahead and get through it, and then I'll ask the question.
So the total amount is $8,050,000. So if someone says, why are we authorizing $8,070,000? Is that a typo? The answer is no, it's not a typo.
That was my question.
That was my last part of the page. The way bond math works, you don't want us to make it simple. It'd be, we'd be out of jobs if we made it simple, but on a serious note, actually. We're asking to have a resolution up to that amount because the way bond math works is that sometimes investors do not give us the exact amount of $8,050,000. They sometimes give us less than that, or they give us more than that. You may say, wait a second, I don't understand that. Well, it has to do with tax treatment of a particular investor. I mean, these are institutional investors, we're not talking about individuals now. So what happens is sometimes a bond is sold at a premium, which means that if we have $8,050,000 needs, we might only borrow $7.5 million, because the investor will actually give us a check and close it, that's a premium. The flip side, that's why we have the $8,750,000, is what happens if an investor gives us less than $8,050,000, we borrow a little extra. All of that, from your perspective and our perspective, all we care about is that the way in which they do that is that the effective interest rate, think of it as like a car loan, the APR, the real APR, is favorable to the town. That's how we work it. So I'll be able to come back to you in a couple of months when we actually bid that out and say, because we're not the ones that do it, we're a financial advisor. We have a fiduciary responsibility to you to get you the best rates. We typically put it out, we go to banks, we've done that, we go to brokerages, and we say, tell us how you want to structure it. So that's why we're asking you to do that, to give us the flexibility. I will tell you right now, I don't expect to be at that level, but if we are, that means that the structure of the debt is such, we'll go over that at the right time, you'll be able to prove it, you'll have that ability, and the reality is, we will be getting ourselves some very, very good all-in cost of money. So that's how we look at that. It's a little complex in sort of concept, but as it whittles down and drills down the actual rates at the time, that'll become very clear. So what really is happening here is by the resolution, I believe what happens here, well, you correct me, but that resolution is set up in such a way that it gives the manager, authorizes the manager to act on your behalf to do those things that are in the town's best interest.
Right.
So that's how it works. So last thing, before I get to that, we also have what we call bond counsel, as I said. And bond counsel will also make sure that all the things that I'm telling you are memorialized. So if we say there's some savings, it's not some cash flow, but it's costing you more on the back end, that's not how we're gonna do this. It's got to be real net present value savings, which is something that you cannot game that system, if you would. That's fail-safe, that's how that works, so you'll see that. But they'll attest to that, and we have an actual accounting report that we don't prepare independently, that underscores as part of the closing documents that show this is indeed savings, wherever that is. So I didn't answer you purposely, I'm a little loath to do that. Depends what we get, I don't wanna also tell the marketplace, but we'll see. So let's go to the last page here, 15 I should say, almost last page here. And that is interest rates, why we're talking about going to refund possibility. If you look at sort of when I started back around 1980, 81 timeframe, interest rates were upwards of 14%. Today, they're hovering around 2%. That's the long bond, meaning that's the 20-year bellwether, if you will. That's not the, it's hard to imagine. So then you look at the right-hand side, this is just since the last 4 years or so. And you can see interest rates were favorable, but now they've really come down again. So it goes back to, when we did the 7.5, it was very favorable. Now it's even a little bit more favorable. All right. Again, could it go a little bit lower? Sure, it could. Will we have the ability, if it does, to refinance? We will set that up within the documents. Doesn't mean it might work in a given year, but we will have that ability to do that again. We will. So what are we talking about in terms of refundings? Here they are on page 16. It's basically about $738,000 of one bond and about $1.5 million of another bond. Not a typo, they're both series 2013, but one was actually a refunding and the other was a new money. So we've actually continued to keep refunding them, and we're not extending them though. Again, that's very, very important. We're just dropping the rates. We've always set it up flexibly enough to do that. So hopefully, that's not going to change. So the final maturities are 2024 and 2028 respectively. That won't change. So, this is lastly, page 17. What we're recommending is sort of a hybrid. We went out with staff's blessing and worked with the staff, and we solicited bids from any banking institution. We asked for banks. We got some good bids. We also got 7 different responses. What we're recommending, though, is not to take any of those particular responses, but instead to go with what we call a public sale, public market sale. Several of those responses talked about and recommended what we call a public sale, typically how the Commonwealth borrows its money. And what that means is that on a date certain, we will go into the marketplace with a prospectus, a preliminary official statement or an offering circular, all the same terms, and we would basically see what the lowest possible rates are. I will tell you, based upon the banking information we got, right now the estimate is we would be about almost 1%, 1.3% lower if we could go to market today versus some of the local banks for fixing the rate for the whole time. So that is very compelling. That's a big number on those several millions of dollars. So it may not stay that way, but from our perspective, we like the idea of locking in the loan while it's so favorable out to 2046, which is the final maturity of the loan right now, and of course having the ability to prepay. So the thinking here is I probably won't be around in 2046, but hopefully before that, maybe somebody will refund it, but not extend it. So that'd be my recommendation. So that's really it. Happy to answer any questions, and I didn't mean to take so long, but I guess we had more than
I do have a question. So you're saying, based on the responses you received, you're recommending against the private placement because the public sale will just open it up to more competition, or, I mean, what,
combination.
or the market conditions?
Just so you know, we call it a direct bank loan nowadays, to
Okay.
differentiate from a private placement.
Okay.
But that's it, just want to make that clear. And we got some very good, some of the local banks here are very strong, they're very good, they do a good job. We just feel like, given what they were providing and all, what would be a better fit for you at this time, it's the key word at this time, is a public sale. And we've got several of those 7 are recommending and can do public sales. We've yet to select one. We're going to talk with staff and Mr. Fell and others and come to some consensus who we might want to use. When I say who, it's going to be some major banking institution. And that ultimately would be the firm or firms that would, we call it underwrite the bond issue. So that's our thinking. I really appreciate this. Happy to answer any questions, Mr. Mayor.
Any questions, council?
I have one question, and I'm new to this process, but I know you said that we have an expected revenue with the development and an expected, an amount that we will pay to service the debt. If the revenue is unexpectedly high, can we pay more? Are we penalized if we pay more?
No, you're not penalized. To the
Okay.
contrary, that would be a wonderful problem to have. Not a problem
Right.
at all. It's a great thing to have, yes.
Okay.
Be good, yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Add that the financial policy guidelines that were prepared, we do plan on discussing this at the July 16th meeting, and we are going to discuss it at the Finance Committee meeting earlier that day. So my hope is that if everybody could look at this, if they have any questions or concerns, to let me know. I can address those with the Finance Committee at that meeting. I think these are good recommendations, the Budget Stabilization Fund, and I think it's important for David, because I think he wants to be able to market this to the rating agencies and use this as a tool. Is that correct, David? Okay. So anyhow, but we do need to adopt the resolutions tonight. He was referring specifically to the guidelines. He didn't think we needed to adopt those tonight if we needed more time to review those. So, okay.
It's on the date.
Do you guys have any other questions at this point in time? Okay, excellent. So I guess at this point in time, we'll open the floor for the public hearing. And if anybody is interested in coming up, let's see what we've got. All right, so we've got a Stephen and Lisa Jett signed up. If you would approach the council and you state your full name and address, and you get 5 minutes. Go ahead. Whoa.
Need help?
I think it'll be it. There we go.
Greetings to the new council persons. This is a prepared statement on behalf of myself, Stephen C. Jett, and my wife, Lisa Roberts Jett, of 333 Court Street in Abington. We are testifying as individual Abington residents. We oppose the current proposal for the town to add $2.5 million worth of additional financial indebtedness toward the Abington Sports Complex. We were dubious about the town's previous borrowing commitment of $10 million, even under much better fiscal conditions. We particularly strongly feel that it would be most imprudent to add to the town's debt burden under the current circumstance of a COVID-19 stressed town budget and the depleted state of the town's contingency fund. The town describes its currently proposed budget as, quote, bare bones, unquote, focusing on, quote, essential services, unquote. What is essential about the sports complex's early completion? The published announcement of this hearing states that the sports complex is for, quote, serving the residents of Abington, unquote. Questions arise. Does this mean that the principal purpose of the complex is now just for the use of Abington's kids and no longer for attracting outside travel ball teams to generate income for the town and business for the Meadows Shopping Center? Will the bond sum now requested be enough to complete this project, or will we continue to be asked to accrue more and more indebtedness? Is debt service for the complex the optimal current allocation of our very scarce funds? What coverage will there be for true emergencies? Will our taxes rise? Whatever one may ultimately hope concerning the sports complex, it seems illogical and irresponsible to commit more funds to it at this particular moment in history, when questions remain even concerning the budgetary feasibility of fully reopening our key existing sports facility, the Coombs Center, and reactivating its entire staff and its full schedule. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this particular matter, public hearing? If not, then I'll declare the public hearing closed, and council, I guess we have an opportunity for discussion. I for one would like to say that this has been a lengthy process so far. I mean, I know I've only been intricately involved for 2 years. And I understand there's been some opposition, if you will, to the sports complex and so on and so forth. But it's difficult to argue in my seat with a financial institution such as Davenport, who has, and I thank you, David, I mean, they've continually given us advice and has proved to be very sound advice. And we, as represented earlier, our contingency fund is well above the 5 million mark. So it isn't declining. And I know this is a very unusual circumstance with the COVID-19 and so on and so forth. But at the same time, there are some commitments you make that you just have to follow through with. And I feel like that the timing for capitalizing on the interest rates and so on and so forth far outweighs kicking the can down the road and trying to prolong the process. And as I alluded to earlier, because of Davenport's good foresight, we did save, I believe it was 1.53 million. Don't quote me on that, but it was close. I know it was close, just by locking into the interest rates on the first 7.5 million. And in my mind, that 1.53 million does make a difference. So the other thing that I would like to at least sort of highlight in this discussion is that just because we're passing a resolution or proposing a resolution to borrow up to 2.5 million, that does not mean we're going to use all that money. And I, for one, have volunteered to do some fundraising, and I'm currently in that process. And we're certainly going to be scraping as many dollars as we can to offset using some of that 2.5 million. And ultimately, we don't know how much we're going to spend until we get bids back. So it's a very complicated process. And I just want to make sure that the public understands it's not without lots of thought and meditation on this particular subject, but I think we're headed in the right direction, and I, for one, support moving forward. So,
I agree, 100%.
Anybody else have?
I agree, but questions that I've had in particular, and I just want to clarify that I have the right answers to this for the public's knowledge. It is my understanding that this will not affect taxes. Taxes are
Correct.
not going to rise because we are borrowing the money. So since we're borrowing the money, we are not going to increase the tax burden on our residents at this time, correct? So hopefully that answers that concern for you. And then I also understand that this should, as far as we know, once we get the bids, of course, we'll know the total, but this should be it. We should not be continually every few years borrowing to complete this project. We should be able to complete this project with this amount of money. Am I correct?
That's right.
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify those 2 points.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's very evident with the procedure that you went through showing us that, the money is there for us to use. And I think, it was originally stated at $2 million, but at 2.5 million, $500,000 more, it's not that much to be offset.
And
So
we're
I
not
think
even
it's-
sure we'll have to use it.
Especially with this.
With the interest rates the way they are, it's just,
Instead of a moot
Very,
point. Yeah,
very little bound.
yeah.
absolutely.
We'll probably save that in interest rates over the term of the loan, yeah.
So, Cam, do we need to take action, or does this?
Let's do the public hearing on the next one, and then we'll take up the resolution.
Okay, all right. So, having said all that, it's pretty evident where we're headed, and we'll head to the next public hearing. proposed bond issued by the town in the estimated maximum amount of $550,000, with proceeds expected to be used to pay cost of acquiring radio communication and other equipment for use by police and emergency responders of the town council. Jimmy Morani.
Before we open the public hearing, I just wanted to explain, this was included in the fiscal year 21 budget, and after consulting with Stephanie Davis and talking to David Rose, we determined it would be in the town's best interest to include this in the bond sale and take advantage of the interest rates. So we're having a separate public hearing just to separate the two issues, as David explained. But when you look in the resolution adopting the resolution that it authorizes the sale of the bonds, we are including this dollar amount in there, and these are for the public sector radios, public safety radios, of course, for the police department and the fire department. So,
And just to clarify
Yeah.
for the public, this is something we really don't have much of any.
no, we have compatibility issues and maintenance issues. We actually talked about doing it last year, but we just didn't pull the trigger on that one because of we figured we could hold off for 1 year, but it needs to happen now. And it will, in the long run, be better for our first responders and save the town on maintenance costs, which actually they become obsolete, our equipment, and it's probably not likely that we're going to be able to get parts for those soon. So, all right.
Well, having said that, I would open the floor for the public hearing. We have anyone signed up? Anybody like to speak on that? Sure, approach the council.
Hopefully you can hear me this time. Is everybody here? I really wanted to encourage you, thank you for taking action on this. I was extremely frustrated at the last board for not taking the opportunity to protect, I guess, our most vulnerable. And you don't think of police officers, fire and rescue, but when you ask somebody to go out and take a bullet for you, you need to make sure they have a Kevlar and anything else they need. Our police chief made it clear that he had officers on the street who could not communicate when they got out of their car. And I know there was discussions about it and waiting, but I think now and in the future, I would beg you never to wait again from a financial perspective. We've seen, we can borrow money for ball fields and things, and this is just something that should never happen. And I did talk to a number of the council members and express my concerns. I know the police chief was very upset about it, but I don't think we as citizens have the right to ask these gentlemen and ladies to go out and literally put themselves in harm's way. And the things that have happened other places, it can come to Abingdon any day. All you need is somebody like Soros to decide he's gonna ship a bus in, and there's gonna be bedlam in the town of Abingdon. And I don't mean to insult anybody, but I think, as far as George Soros, but that's what happens. Let's just face the facts. When you need to support our men in blue, I would ask that you would consider increases in their salaries. I applaud the council for bringing Leos in, but those people are just under undue stress, and I'd hate to see us lose the good ones, because the younger ones sometimes just don't have the wisdom that has come with all those years of service, and they're staying less and less time. I have family members who were retired from the state police, and they would not even go into police work anymore, especially not without equipment. So I thank you for doing this. And one last thing, I would ask that you revisit the equipment that was proposed, because that was a year ago. And I don't know that it is, state of the art today will be gone in 10 years. If we take what was state of the art, and it was not the top of the line, what was proposed last year. It was, well, let's save some money last year. It's good, but it's not, almost the best or the best. So I would ask that you really, especially our new council people, look into that and have discussions with the police and fire, and make sure that we are prepared and that it will last for another 10 years, because it really scares me. Last thing I want to see is Abingdon have a police officer or anybody fall in the line of duty. But the world's gotten a little too crazy. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to speak on that? Okay. If there are no other speakers, I will close the public hearing, and any discussion, council? I think it's probably worth, and Donna, I do want to respond a little bit, and I hope my memory's not foggy on this one, but I think one of the reasons that we waited was because we are,
The fire department.
we're coordinating with the county as well. So we got a better deal and we got the same equipment. Is that correct, Jimmy? It was something to do with,
Boy, that's not, I came in right after that
yeah,
discussion happened. so-
I'll have to check on that.
Wanted to wait a year.
Yeah, I think that was
And
part of
bothered
it.
me that we let our people
Yeah.
down for another year.
And John, you may know more about that, but was that the situation at the time we were trying to coordinate with the county, or?
John Holbert.
Yeah. Sorry. Sorry, hold it.
Has to do with the P25 compliant radio system.
Okay. I apologize. I didn't mean to drag you out of the back there.
It has to do with the P25 radio compliance system, which is kind of the nationwide standard for the new radios.
Okay.
CJ McLaughlin will probably give you more in-depth.
Right.
detail on this radio. But, now would be the time our
Yeah.
radios are.
Can't hear you.
I'm sorry. I said now would be the time, because our current radio system are failing pretty quickly,
Yeah,
and they're outdated, and
Sure.
maintenance costs are just,
Through the roof,
it's not
yeah.
there, because the parts aren't there.
We'll make sure, and Donna, I appreciate what you said, that I completely agree. We gotta support the boys in blue. Make sure that we're getting the equipment we need, rather than settling for something that's not what we need. Just double check on that for me.
Yes, sir,
Okay.
we
Yeah.
are researching that quite a bit, and, I've been talking with several different companies.
Good.
As far as what the best route to go for our locality.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that, and thank you for speaking. Anything else from the council? All right, we're moving right along. So, we have one more public hearing to solicit input, public input on local community development in relation to community development block grant, otherwise known as CDBG funding for a project in the community. Tanya Triplett.
Good evening.
Hello.
So we have an opportunity through the Virginia Department of Housing and Community Development to get assistance, particularly for some COVID monies. So they are interested in putting small businesses back to work while assisting those in need in a community. So we came up with a plan. We identified 20 locally owned restaurants, and we partnered with Faith in Action. So we have, our budget would be providing 60 meals, 3 days a week. So Faith in Action provides food bank services Mondays, Tuesdays, and Fridays. So our local restaurants would prepare 60 to-go hot meals and deliver those to Faith in Action at $12 a meal. So it would help the restaurants to get a little bit of revenue back into their budgets while assisting some of the folks who are getting services from Faith in Action. Faith in Action serves over 800 families a month. They serve a wide range of ages. So we felt like they were a good partner. They also operate the New Life Thrift Store on Main Street to fund many of their programs throughout the year. And they lost donations and revenue for about 3.5 months. So we thought this would be a good opportunity to help them provide a new service at their facility while supporting our local restaurants.
Sure.
So CDBG requires that we do 2 public hearings, so this will be the first one tonight, then we will do another one on July the 16th, at which time you will see a resolution that you can pass if you're still interested in participating in this project. I had a budget all prepared for 60 meals, and they emailed me today and said, would it be possible to do 80 meals? So there may be some extra monies available and some extra opportunities. So this would be over a 20-week period, and what stands with the original budget, each restaurant would be able to provide 60 meals on 3 separate occasions.
Okay.
So that would put $720 toward each business each time they prepare the meals at 60. So that number would increase if it's 80.
Excellent.
Any questions?
So to clarify for the public, this is like a grant that we have no expense at all. We
There's
actually
no
make money,
matching.
right? Okay,
No matching for
Excellent.
this.
excellent. Do y'all have any other questions?
Sounds great.
Thank you for your hard work on
Thank
that.
you,
Yeah, I look
Tanya.
forward to realizing that, yeah.
Thank you.
So at this time, I'll open the public hearing. If anyone is interested in coming up to speak. Anybody interested in coming up to speak? Yes, on this issue.
Virginia Brooke Nyhart, 863 Wolf Creek Trail, Abington. I was unaware of this project till now, but when I had gone over to Faith in Action Food Bank a few weeks ago and asked if they needed extra anything or help, and the gentleman running it at the time said that, oh no, things had been very, very slow because people had received so much more money with food stamps, the stimulus
Sure,
checks, et
sure.
cetera. So I'm just curious if that suddenly changed.
Yeah, I couldn't answer that. Tanya may be able to give you more information on that one.
Yes, I can answer that. So on average, they serve, about 100 families each time they open the food bank. So that's why the numbers were reduced to the 60 meals instead of keeping it at 100.
Okay, okay. So there is, in fact, a reduced need right now because all the other money's floating around. Is that what I'm hearing?
That, he suspected that could be it. He also said that they serve a great number of senior citizens.
Right.
So it very well could be that they're
People just not
staying
getting
at home, yeah.
I got you, I
Yeah,
got you.
so he was not 100% sure why, but he said there definitely had been a decline. So with the average at 100, we felt like 60 was a fairly safe number.
Okay, okay. Fair
I'm going to add something onto that. I'm going to state the obvious. Somebody's going to get this money. And if we don't apply for it, let's give it to our local businesses who
Right,
can feed people in our community. So I think it's kind of a no-brainer that I mean, these agencies that have these funds are looking to spend it.
Sure.
So I think we're just trying to be proactive and
sure.
trying to help the local businesses. And this is a phenomenal way to do it, in my
Absolutely.
opinion.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah. And thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this particular issue? If there's no other speaker, I will close the public hearing. And do we have any discussion, council? All right, hearing none, we'll move forward. So now we're at the resolution section of the agenda. Up first is a resolution authorizing the issuance and sale of general obligation bonds of the town of Abington in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $8.75 million, and authorizing the refunding of prior bonds and certain related actions. Jimmy Morani.
Yes,
This is, as Mr. Rose so eloquently presented during his very long and dry presentation. But this outlines, in this resolution, it outlines the various, the debt service, or the proposed amounts for the bond issue. Includes the $8.75 million at the top, but also includes the public safety radio equipment. So I think you guys have discussed it already. The only question is whether or not you would like to adopt the proposed terms that we've presented based on the recommendations of staff and the financial advisor. So.
Okay. All right. So I guess we're looking for a motion to support that resolution. Do I have a motion?
I would like to make that motion, that we approve the resolution.
All right, we have a motion to approve that resolution, as stated in the section of the agenda, I'm assuming?
Right,
Okay.
yes.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, we've got a second. Any discussion, council? All right, hearing none. Kim, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Anderson.
Aye.
Ms. Billion.
Aye.
Ms. Quetch.
Aye.
And Mayor Webb.
Aye. Moving right along to number 2, a resolution declaring an official intent to reimburse certain expenditures from the proceeds of the bonds. Jimmy Morani.
Yes, this is a resolution that allows the town to include previous expenses incurred for this particular project. We did make an expense for a radio tower, and if anything were to be incurred between now and the time that we actually issue the bonds, we had already done this for the sports complex, obviously, because we've already incurred costs, but this is a standalone resolution specifically for the public safety radio project, so.
All right, so we're looking for a motion to support that resolution. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion that we accept this resolution.
All right, I have a motion to accept that resolution as stated in the number 2 of the resolution section. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And a second. Council, do we have any discussion? All right, hearing none. Kim, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Anderson,
Aye.
Ms. Billion,
Aye.
Ms. Wedge,
Aye.
and Mayor Webb.
Aye. And last but not least, we have a resolution, number 3, fourth amend resolution to suspend disconnection of water and/or sewer service effective from the date of its passage until July 31st, 2020 to any customer due to non-payment. Jimmy Moran.
Yes, this is the final time at least staff is going to recommend we present this to the council. It takes us through the end of July. We have been coordinating with the Service Authority on their timeline and schedules regarding their cutoffs, and both parties have made the decision that we will continue to operate as normal and discontinue the suspensions of the cutoffs in the month of August. And since we have a relationship with them and we share cutoff responsibilities, we want to make sure that we're on the same page with them. So this will just take us through the end of July, which is what the practice that the Service Authority is doing right now. But since our cutoffs are at the end of the month, we've typically been doing these resolutions at the beginning or the middle of the month. But unless directed otherwise by the council, I won't bring another resolution back to the council, and this will be the final one to take us to the end of the month to suspend. And we will put notices out to the public. We'll put notices out on social media and the website, and also try to do some direct contacts with account holders who may have outstanding balances to inform them that charges, their accounts will need to become current, that we will continue, or we will discontinue the suspensions of the cutoffs to do that. And just so everybody knows, I wanted to say that I've looked at the accounts, and actually the numbers aren't quite as alarming as we would expect. They actually, for this most recent month that ended, the numbers were fairly typical than what we had in other months, even months prior to the pandemic. So I think a lot of the people maybe who are paying bills are paying the ones that they feel like they really need to pay, which is the water and electric and those types of bills. So, and I think it probably helps that, the people who have lost their jobs have gotten unemployment. So I don't think that this is going to be as big of an issue as we once thought, but I still think it was the right thing to do at the time we did it, so.
All right, council, so we're looking for a motion to support that fourth amend resolution to suspend disconnection. Do I have a motion?
I would like to make a motion to go ahead and suspend disconnection for the Fourth Amendment.
Okay. I've got that motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, got a second. Do I have any discussion? All right, hearing none. Kim, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Anderson,
Aye.
Ms. Billion,
Aye.
Ms. Wedge,
Aye.
and Mayor Webb.
Aye. All right, so we don't have any first readings of ordinances, so we'll skip down to item H, second reading of ordinances. Number 1, proposed zoning text amendment to amend the code of the town of Abingdon, Appendix B, zoning ordinance, Article 8, OH, or the Old and Historic District, Section 8-2, permitted uses by right, subsections 8-2-4. Jason Boswell.
Thank you, Mayor Webb. Honorable council, I just fogged up my glasses. Again, thank you. This proposed zoning text amendment was referred up by the Planning Commission at the February 19th Town Council work session. The Planning Commission conducted a public hearing on June 1st. They unanimously forwarded their recommendations to the Town Council. Town Council approved that first reading of the ordinance at the June 15th council meeting. This proposed zoning text amendment would allow restaurants as permitted use by right in the Old Historic District, Sub-District 4. There was some conversation at the last meeting. Sub-District 4 encompasses the area west of Tanner Street, east to Common, and south of Plum Alley to East Main Street.
Any questions, council, for Jason? All right, so you are proposing that we go ahead and accept this ordinance?
Yes, Mr. Wood.
All right. Absolutely. So we're looking for a motion to adopt this proposed zoning text amendment. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion that we adopt this.
Got a motion by Mr. Anderson. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, second by Ms. Pillion. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. Kim, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Anderson.
Aye.
Ms. Pillion.
Aye.
Ms. Quetch.
Aye.
And Mayor Webb.
Aye. So, I guess Jason stays in the hot seat. Number 2, proposed zoning text amendment to amend the code of the town of Abingdon, Appendix B zoning ordinance, Article 8, OH, Old and Historic District, Section 8-2, permitted uses by right, subsection 8-2-13.
Thank you, Mayor Webb, and honorable council again. The planning commission conducted a public hearing to discuss this at the June 1st meeting and approved it unanimously, forwarded it to the town council, and had the first reading at the June 15th town council meeting. This proposed zoning text amendment would allow lofts in existing buildings and portions of existing buildings as a permitted use by right in the ONH district, sub-district 13, which is the Arts Depot district.
The only sub-district in which lofts is not allowed.
That's correct, yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Bell.
So that completes the Old and Historic District, right?
Yeah.
All right. So we're looking for a motion. Do I have a motion to adopt that proposed zoning text amendment?
I will move to adopt it.
All right. Got a motion by Ms. Pillion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right. A second by Mr. Anderson. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none. Kim, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Anderson.
Aye.
Ms. Pillion.
Aye.
Ms. Quetch.
Aye.
And Mayor Webb.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
I think when the zoning code was originally adopted, there was an anti-loft campaign, and then some districts, that's why we ended up.
That one sub-district, right?
We'll have to ask Mr. Bradley.
All right, moving right along. We don't have any consideration of bids tonight. We do have miscellaneous business and communication from the town manager. Jimmy got his own section.
Yeah, the mic, I replaced my mic with that one because I can
You're
talk
good.
really loud.
You're good, you're good.
I'm gonna turn this first part over to Chief Holbrook. He has a couple guests from the Crisis Intervention Team, right? Did I say that right? Okay. We recently, over the past month or so, established a new relationship with HCS, and I'm gonna let Chief Holbrook explain that, and also we'll get some participation from them as well.
Good evening, Mayor Webb, members of council. I'm glad to see you all here tonight. Great pleasure to get to come to you on my first time as Chief of Police speaking to you, and it's about a partnership with Highlands Community Services and dealing with the mental health crisis that we have. With me tonight is Candace Miller Phillips. She has 19 years of experience dealing with mental health, and Byron Ashbrook, who has multiple years in the law enforcement field. So together they make a great team for us. They understand both sides. They understand our issues with serving the emergency custody orders, which for those of you that are unfamiliar, it's a court order that we take someone in a mental crisis in our custody and hold them for up to 8 hours. As you can see, there could be some potential for problems with that. And then they transfer over to a temporary detention order where we take them to a mental hospital or they get released from a pre-screener. So what this is the Crisis Intervention Team Assessment Center, and it is teaming 2 officers from the Abingdon Police Department, paid for by funding from the Department of Behavioral Health through Highlands Community Services, and teaming them with pre-screeners at the center so that the mental health process goes a lot smoother. It helps us staff so we don't have to take anybody off the road because they're already there. And pretty much it's helping, or our main goal, it's helping our people in this community with mental health crisis. It's helping them get to a pre-screener quicker, and it's helping us be involved without treating them like a criminal, because they're not a criminal, they're just in a crisis. So I'm going to hand this over to Candace, who has a great presentation and can take you through all the ins and outs of this program so that you're very familiar with it.
And one thing before you start, I do want to remind everybody that today is Chief Holbrook's birthday. We're not going to sing to you,
Thank you.
but I had to recognize it.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'll remember. Next year, thank you.
Welcome, guys.
So yes, I'm Candace Miller Phillips. I'm the Department Director of Crisis Services at Highlands Community Services. And I want to talk to you a little bit about what CIT is. So we'll hear CIT used for a little bit here, and that stands for Crisis Intervention Team. You did great. So CIT, we had the opportunity to apply for some grant funding through the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services. And there was 2 grants that we did apply for, and ironically, Major Ashbrook at the time, he was at the sheriff's office, and we had said, we're gonna partner, we're gonna do this, let's apply for this grant, so he actually helped me with the grants. The first grant is about CIT programming in general, and it's very important to understand, and we did receive both grants. Okay, so I wanna tell you about the first part, because it's a mindset. So the Crisis Intervention Team, we got funding for some training. So it's a 40-hour curriculum that's designed to educate law enforcement officers in the field. So they come in, they sit with us at the police academy, and they receive 40 hours of mental health, substance use training. They learn about signs, symptoms, warning, what can I do to maybe intervene with this person differently versus possibly thinking something else, like they're intoxicated or they're just being defiant, and arresting them and getting them in jail. So we spend a great deal of time during that training, Byron and I. Byron is the CIT coordinator, and so he spearheads all of that, but we did receive funding for that. That's the core. We have to train our officers about what CIT is and what other options and treatment and services are available for those with behavioral health issues. When I use the term behavioral health, I'm talking about severely mental illness, and also substance use issues as well. And that would also involve those with autism, developmental disorders, and that type of thing. So behavioral health is the word that I typically use. So we did receive that grant. CIT is more about a process for addressing crisis care in a community. It's our responsibility as the community and to the family members and those suffering from those illnesses. And it's, like I said, a mindset change. CIT was developed because they're in Memphis, Tennessee. Back in 1988, there was a mentally ill consumer who was fatally shot by law enforcement. To come to find out, he was mentally ill and he really needed services. And so they started research, police research, and now it is a nationwide, and actually it's international. CIT programming is huge. We have 38 CIT assessment centers across the state of Virginia. We were just a little late to the game. It's been here since 2007, and we're just now had an opportunity to apply ourselves. So we have brought this to our community. It's very important that our goals for CIT is try our very best to keep those with mental illness or developmental disorders and so on out of the jails. We want to decrease the injury rates for those consumers in need, and also for law enforcement officers. We got to keep our people safe. And we also want to be able to recognize when someone is having a behavioral health issue versus when there's just criminal activity. Okay, and so we're working really hard to train our officers in all of Southwest Virginia. And of course, we want to reduce the time the officers are spending on mental health calls. We want them to get back in the field, let them do their job, and let us take care of the mental health piece. So we're talking tonight about the second grant that we applied for, which involves now the town of Abingdon. We have partnered effective today. We are super excited. We have been providing this service for a year, but we were with Washington County Sheriff's Office, and we decided that we wanted to switch partners. And today's day one. So we're excited about this. Our CIT center is located on Campus Drive in town. The CIT center is a location that we have one officer and we have one pre-screener who's your mental health person, and they're on site, and Byron's going to talk a little bit more about that. But the whole purpose is so if I'm trying to give you an example of what this would look like. I'm an officer in the community, and I might get a magistrate's order that someone needs to be detained on an emergency custody order because they have been found to maybe need mental health services, and they're not willing to do that. So the officers go to the person's home, they detain them, and then instead of rushing them to the emergency room, they are bringing them to the assessment center. They're bringing them to a therapeutic environment where we have a lot of sensory items with very calming. There's no loud noises. We want to keep it, it's nice and it's clean. It's a beautiful facility on Campus Drive. So they're not rushed off to the emergency room. And that handoff occurs between that officer and my CIT officer, who are now going to be employees of Abingdon Police. It's really his officers. But they are going to be specially trained in CIT. So this person is now handed off to the CIT assessment center. Officer goes back to his job. We take care of the mental health part, the mental health needs.
Officers, they're not dressed, when they're at the center, they're not dressed like normal police officers, so it's maybe not as intimidating.
Yes.
Right, okay.
So what I soften, we like to say we soften the officers, so they don't look like this. They are wearing they're wearing polo shirts that has a logo. Byron actually doesn't have his on today, but it's just a black polo that has CIT. It's got a cute little logo. They wear like khaki pants. They do have their gun belt on and things like that for safety, but it is certainly more softened than what you would expect. We also have an unmarked car, courtesy of Abingdon PD, thank you so much, so that when the person is being served, it's not so criminalized that they're in a marked police car. It's going to be, the windows are tinted so people can't see through, make fun of them, that type of thing if they're really struggling. Because we also serve children. We serve children who need services, and the last thing we need is them driving through town, having a situation and being in the back of a police car. It's not a good thing. So we have the CTAC is what we're calling now, the Crisis Intervention Team Assessment Center. And how does this help law enforcement? Again, this helps your officers from being tied up in the emergency room. Since June, as of June 30th, we've been in operation for 1 year. We started June 17th, 2019. So we just had our 1-year anniversary that we're super excited about. And we have saved 566 hours for law enforcement where they would normally be sitting at the Johnson Memorial Hospital's ER. Instead, they are bringing them to us and we are able to attend to their needs. This is an alternative to criminal arrest. We have cases constantly coming in now to where I think officers without CIT training would have just arrested the person who was trying to break into the Wells Fargo during broad daylight, during business hours, because she was confused about her location. She wasn't really trying to rob the bank or break into the bank. She was just confused. And that person was brought to us and we were able to serve her. And what we found out is that she was actually very, very toxic and she was in the final stages of renal failure. So she would have probably died if she had been put in jail for trying to break into the Wells Fargo. So we've got and this was Abingdon PD that actually did this before our partnership began, had some really good officers on that day. So how does the CTAC help the consumer and the emergency room? Again, we provide a more therapeutic environment than the emergency room, especially now during the pandemic. Nobody wants to be in the ER right now. If you don't need to be. The emergency room right now, every time someone walks through the door, if they're just there to see mental health, it costs you $2,000 to be medically cleared. $2,000. Not all of our consumers have finances like that or health insurance, so they receive a bill for that. So what we're trying to do is also save our community money and allow us to see the person first to even determine if they need to go to the ER for medical clearance or if they even need to be hospitalized. So we're trying to bypass all that expense right now. We're able to link people to services much quicker. They're able to get their needs met and get back on the road to recovery or whatever their issue is. So I'm going to let Byron pick up now about how exactly that CTAC works. Anybody have any questions before I sit down? Yeah. Okay.
I'll be pretty brief. Like she said, it's a combination of education and giving officers options. Prior to us having this center here, oftentimes these people would have ended up in jail. And now if they see someone with a mental health issue, they have to be educated on what to look for. They have another option. Prior to this, a lot of law enforcement officers, and I know when I went through the academy 17 years ago, we were scared of mental health because it took a lot of time, 8 hours at the hospital. Not now. Now they can bring them to us. We have officers there, and we can sit and eat up most of that time, and they're specially trained on how to deal with it. So how does it work? We have staff of 1 pre-screener and 1 police officer on at a time, plus myself during 5 days a week. They work in tandem up to 80 hours a week. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, work 13 hours a day. We work a couple 11.5-hour days and then 10-hour days on the weekends. And we do that based on what times the most ECOs and things of that nature have come in. It's been very successful. As of today, we served our 206th consumer as of today. So I'm not going to get too much in depth on how it works. Law enforcement contacts us through their dispatch. We run them through a little bit of protocol to make sure that these people don't need to go straight to the ER. Maybe they've overdosed or they have injuries. But once they clear that, they can come to us. We take custody, and from there they get mental health screened. So I don't want to get too much into the weeds, but it's a combination of education and having options. So, John, you want to talk about
I just want to say that we were
statistics?
super excited. We were extremely excited about partnering with Abingdon Police
Absolutely.
Department. We had actually kind of got this worked out with Cameron and our town manager here, and then Chief Sullivan before his departure. And so John stepped up to the plate very quickly and wanted to continue this program, and we were extremely grateful because this is a phenomenal program for our community, and I really appreciate your all's support in supporting him as we continue to serve the people in our community. So thank you.
Thank you, guys.
It's all about doing the right thing for the right reasons at the right time. Got a perfect team here. It was a pretty easy decision. Mr. Brandy was on board and supported us 100%. Cam, thank you for all your work on everything and reviewing all the agreements for us.
You want to address how this is paid for?
Sure, yes. Payment is always good. So the Department of Behavioral Health pays for the full salary and benefits of each of our 2 officers. So that amount covers a good salary, even better than our starting salary. So the officer selected even got a raise going into that position. So it's covered for us. We do provide the vehicle. Of course, we would do that anyways. So if CTAC was closed, we would have to provide the officer in the vehicle, but now we can plan for it. And behavioral health pays for that through Highlands Community Services. So it's pretty cost effective for us. It costs us a vehicle and some body armor and duty belt for our officers. We've already selected Officer Kayla Richardson to be one of the CTAC officers, and just gave a conditional offer to Haley Rogers, who was formerly at the Sheriff's Office in CTAC and is now going to be transferring to us. So 2 great choices for that program.
Just to add on to that, the grant it's a 1-year term, so every year, I think the program has gotten pretty established now, so I don't expect, and I think based on the good work that they've done at their center, they've sort of become a model agency within the center around the region. So even though it is continually renewed every year, we will have to work on the agreement every year, and I will, we'll sit down, before July 1st every year, but we're expecting that this will be a long-term relationship, even though it is annually.
Yes, it has been in the state of Virginia since 2007. So the funding continues to expand, and the General Assembly, as long as they continue to pass CIT programming in the state of Virginia, and it continues to be very effective, it will just be ongoing funding. So each year we might have to tweak this and that, but it's just ongoing funding. As long as we produce the statistics and the information that Byron has to collect every day and submit to the department, we will have no issues with continuing the funding. And in fact, Highlands Community Services has been asked to participate on a statewide work group committee with the idea that maybe we can become a regional hub at some point, which is a huge honor, because we've only been open a year. So our numbers, our statistics are phenomenal, and it's because of Byron's hard work, our officers' hard work, our mental health people are just passionate about serving those that need us, and we're gonna continue to grow.
Well, thank you for all your hard work. I'm super excited too.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much.
Do you have any questions?
Got any questions, council? I don't think we need any action. Action.
Thank
Thank you
you.
guys so much for coming out.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for what you did. All right. Moving right along, we have discussion regarding vacation and sick leave policies. Jimmy Morani.
Yes, this is just to approve what we had discussed at the previous work session, just to formalize it. We need a motion to adopt that, and just to remind everybody, this is just putting everybody back in the same single system on vacation and sick leave and eliminating the PTO time as we discussed, so. Just need a motion for that.
Council, do I have a motion for that?
I'll make a motion that we accept
All right, have a motion by Mr. Anderson. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, second by Vice Mayor Quetch. Any discussion, council? All right, Kim, if you don't mind to call the roll.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Ms. Pillion?
Aye.
Ms. Quetch?
Aye.
Mayor Webb?
Aye. Next up, we've got consideration of certification for receipt of coronavirus relief fund payments.
Yes, we're just asking the council to adopt this certification in its current form. It was prepared by the county's attorney and reviewed by Mr. Bell. This is for the CARES Act funds that we are working with Washington County on. And anytime that we incur expenses, we'll need to complete this form, submit it to the county, and ultimately the county is, since they are the recipient of these funds, they are responsible, and they, it is their responsibility to make sure that the funds are expended properly. So this is really just protocols, procedure, but we are just asking the council to adopt this form, and it's what we will use when we submit the expenses for reimbursement to the county.
Everybody have a chance to look at that form in its draft version? Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the certification for receipt of coronavirus relief fund payment form?
I would make a motion that we, what is it?
Approve the form? Yeah.
Approve the form.
You got it, you got it. So I've got a motion on the
Yeah.
floor to approve the form. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And a second. Any discussion, council? All right, Kim, if you don't mind to call the roll.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Ms. Pillion?
Aye.
Ms. Quetch?
Aye.
And Mayor Webb?
Aye. Next on the agenda is consideration of date for upcoming work sessions. Did everybody happen to bring a calendar? Or a planner?
Let me write mine down.
So this is the work sessions for August through December. I think we've already set that July work session. The council meeting, of course, always falls, the regular scheduled council meeting always falls on the first Monday of the month. Having said that, Kim, what about Labor Day being September the 7th? You want to address that first? Do we generally move it to the 8th?
We
or-
do generally move it to the next
Okay.
following day.
Or are you guys okay with moving the regular scheduled council meeting to the 8th, the night of the 8th of September? Because of Labor Day on the 7th? All right. And let's see where we are. So then I think we're looking for a date in August for a work session. Traditionally, we have scheduled those a couple of weeks after the regular scheduled council meeting, just so that we had some separation there in time to process some things. If we're looking at, let's see, the council meeting will be on the 3rd, so we're looking at the week of the 17th to the 21st. What about the 19th? Would everybody be okay with the 19th?
Is it 2:30?
Yeah, 2:30 for a work session. Is that okay with you?
It's okay with me.
All right. What about you, Mr. Anderson?
Is that on what day?
Wednesday.
Wednesday,
Mhm.
yeah.
2:30? Okay. All right, so August the 19th for the work session. Kim, is that okay with you? All right, let's move to September for the work session. And again, that council meeting will be on the 8th, the regular scheduled council meeting, so we're looking at the week of the 21st to the 25th. How about the 24th, that Thursday? Would that work for you guys?
Work for me.
Okay. So 2:30 on the 24th of September. How about you, Kim?
Yeah.
All right. And it is done. Moving along to October, the regular scheduled meeting's on the 5th, so we're looking at the week of probably the 19th through the 23rd. Would the 22nd, that Thursday, work for you guys?
Work for me.
All right.
October 23rd?
October 22nd,
Second.
the Thursday that week at 2:30. Okay, moving along to November. Our regular council meeting will be on the 2nd of November. So let's look at the week of the 16th through the 20th. I think we're going to try to avoid Thanksgiving week. Most people are, traveling,
Yeah.
so on and so forth. What about the 19th? Would that work for you guys?
Works for me.
That's Thursday, the 19th of November at 2:30. All right. And last but not least, we'll look at December. Our regular scheduled council meeting will be on the 7th, so 2 weeks later would be the week of Christmas. We're probably gonna wanna avoid that week. I mean, I can do it, but it's up to you guys. You wanna move it to that week after the council meeting, the 17th?
Mayor, I might ask a suggestion. Why
Sure.
don't we hold off on scheduling that date? Because
Okay.
sometimes that month tends to be slower.
Right, right.
And
You may
we
not
might
have to have
need
it.
a
Okay.
work session that month.
Fair enough,
so,
fair enough.
I mean, I can certainly let everybody know if I think we
Sure.
need to have one, but it might not be a bad idea just to hold off.
Okay, all right, so we'll keep the 7th.
That work
then
for
of-
everybody?
Yeah, great news, right?
I think we did that last year, didn't we?
I think so. I can't remember.
think
I
so.
honestly don't remember.
But now, we're also gonna put we can talk about this later, but our finance committee's the same day as the work
Yes,
session?
yes, correct.
Just earlier than the morning,
Yep,
okay?
yep, you got it. All right, so that completes the upcoming work sessions. Last but not least, we've got consideration of a proposed date for the council to tour the town departments. And were we looking
Yeah.
at September or October?
Yeah, we're looking at doing it late September, maybe. We don't need anybody to set a date. We just
Okay.
want to let everybody know, look at your calendars.
Okay.
We obviously have a new council member that'll be coming in. So, I know a couple of years ago, there was an attempt to do this, but schedules just didn't work.
Right.
So now that we have a couple, we'll have 3 new council members, we just like to do a tour of some of the various departments. I know everybody's dying to see the sewer plant. And not everybody gets to see that, but it's amazing.
As long as it's not too hot, huh?
Yeah, well, that's why we wanted to do it in late September. So, so it's an opportunity for the council members to learn a little bit more about what goes on day to day, and especially if they have questions. It's always good to see that. So just everybody just keep in mind, look at your calendars for late September, and then we can schedule something at the next regular meeting after we get to other council members. So
That'll work.
I do have a couple things I wanted to bring up at the end. of
Sure,
this.
sure, yeah, go ahead.
Just a couple kind of housekeeping items. Now that it's July 1st, the charter revisions are in effect. I did appoint John McCormick as fire chief, so he's not going anywhere. So just had to make that official, since previously, as some of you might know, it was an appointment by the council, but since we made that change in the charter, so he is still acting fire chief. Community center, or the Coons Center, I have met with Jennifer and Militia this week, and I did put a statement out today, just to let the public know what's going on. We are hopeful, as long as things go as planned, we are hoping to open the facility sometime in late summer, early fall. We hope it's late summer and earlier than expected. It will just depend on a number of things. We are gonna try to phase in some of the services because of the health issues and because of the staffing needs. What people also need to realize is that even though that's not an essential service, we do wanna provide recreation opportunities for the community, but also have them realize that that is not a department that generates, doesn't pay for itself. So when we're also trying to fund police, fire, public works, necessary administrative staff, we have to make sure that we balance those needs in the community with the recreational needs. I think it's certainly a benefit for us to have a center this size in our community. Recreation is important, but we still have to focus on the core services and balance that with the needs of the recreational needs of the community. But we are going in the right direction, so I just want to let everybody know we are planning for it. We'll be doing some things behind the scenes to prepare to get the Coombs Center open in the very near future, but we'll also be watching revenues closely leading up to that to make sure that we don't, at least that the trend doesn't go the other way.
Can we also state that we subsidize it by $900,000?
Yeah, $800,000 or $900,000 in the general fund.
Yeah.
And I think I explained at the last meeting when we had the budget meeting that because we put the memberships on pause, when we restart those, that'll just defer those membership payments for however long we were closed. And so it's definitely a juggling act, but we do realize the importance, especially when we get past the summer months, when it gets into the colder months when people want to still go indoors and exercise, and those are very important times for us to have facilities open. So more information will be coming soon as we get closer. Other few things I wanted to bring up. The courthouse committee that the county has established will be starting up again. There's a meeting next week. I'll be attending that. They did kind of take a hiatus for a couple months because of the pandemic. And finally, Chief Holbrook and I have discussed him coming and doing a quarterly report to the council, just kind of giving everybody an update on what's going on in the department, activities that are going on, if there's anything that you might want to hear about specifically about what's going on in the team, feel free to give suggestions, but it's an opportunity to inform you a little bit more about what's going on with the city. It's kind of a special occasion that we did this, it'd be a good start this way. It's a new program, but things like, community policing, what's going on, special projects, those are things that we'd like him to address quarterly, and I think it'd be good for the public too, to hear some of those things from the police as well. So I just wanted to bring that up, so.
Excellent.
That's all I have, Mayor.
All right, excellent. So we'll move on to old business. We have a reconsideration of a proposed right-of-way and easement for an electric power line or lines to Appalachian Power Company of Virginia Corporation on property known as Fairview Farm and Foundation, located at or near 908 Hillman Highway, consisting of 421 feet more or less. John oh, he's already there.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Welcome to new members. This is a reconsideration, like you said, from last meeting. To bring you both up to speed, if you're not too familiar with it, AEP approached the town about wanting to install a parallel circuit from their Hillman Highway substation across the Fairview property, or the portion that the town owns. So they want to install this parallel line to hook into two existing circuits with the ultimate goal of increasing capacity and reliability of the service in the larger area, including a big portion of East Abingdon. So the line they want to install is parallel to the existing line that already runs across the property. So there will be an expansion, if you will, of the area over which their lines cross, but they are overhead lines that will span across the majority of the property. So it's a reconsideration for this meeting because last meeting one of the members of the Old Glade Tractor Association expressed some concern about the effect of their operations out there. And I guess in a larger sense, maybe some of the town's operations. So we wanted to confirm that that AEP's installation would not have any effect. We did go back out to the site, Mr. Boswell and I did, and confirm the location of the two new poles. And like I said, it will span across the property and won't have any, we don't feel like it'll have any negative impact on the operations out there. So what we're looking forward, I think tonight is consideration of the request by AEP and the easement document that they submitted to the town for review. And if you concur, then we can get the town manager to sign the easement and put this into effect. And the result will be increased reliability and the ability for AEP to switch loads around for those different circuits, which really helps out in bad weather when we have lines go down. So it will give them that flexibility, and I think we all benefit from it. So if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to try to address them.
So I just want to clarify, my understanding is it won't have any bearing on the Ogata people as far as tearing up their site for demonstrations and so on and so forth.
No, the way this, again, it's parallel to the existing line, and the poles are at the far ends, and the lines span overhead. So there really is nothing on the ground that will affect any operations.
It wasn't over any property that Ogata has a right in right now.
Okay.
Anyway.
That's an excellent point.
At least right now anyways.
Oh,
Right.
okay. All right.
Did you have the opportunity to explain this to the gentleman that spoke at our last meeting?
I didn't catch his name, but I'd be more than happy to.
I probably wrote it down.
Okay.
Have it cut off.
Well, why don't you go ahead and call him then?
Well, probably find his name.
I'd be more than happy to call. Okay.
So what you need from us then is a motion and a second to approve this agreement and then give the town manager authority to
sign the
negotiate and sign.
easement, enter into that agreement with them.
Well, council, if no more questions for Mr. Dew, then I guess we need a motion.
I'll make also a motion.
All right, motion by Mr. Anderson. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, second by Vice Mayor Quetch. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. Kim, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Anderson.
Aye.
Ms. Billion.
Aye.
Ms. Quetch.
Aye.
Mayor Webb.
Aye. Thanks, John. All right, next
I'm gonna
up.
get sanctioned by the vice mayor. That's gonna be your first action.
Yeah, watch out, Jimmy. All right, so we're to council member reports. Do any of the council members have reports they'd like to?
I have one.
Okay, Don, go ahead.
I have one. Well, I just want to say welcome to our new council members, Ms. Pillion and Mr. Anderson. I very much look forward to working with you both, and I can't wait to see what we can do together for the citizens of the town that we love. In the last 2 years, the town has made good progress, and it's been my pleasure to work with town management, staff, and fellow council members in the face of many challenges and historic change. I also want to thank Mr. Craig for his leadership as mayor and his friendship these past 2 years. We have very good reason to be proud of his service to our town. It's also been great to work with our new town manager, Jimmy Ranney, and I have grown confident in his leadership. And it's exciting for me to watch the entire staff do what municipal government does to serve the people of Abingdon. So now, let's keep moving forward.
My sentiments, exactly. Do either of you have a report you'd like to make or anything you'd like to say? All right. Well, I do, Mr. Fullen, I will address one of the questions that you had regarding the appointment of the town council vacancy. So we're going to use a process, I don't think anything's really like set in stone yet, but we're going to use a process that was similar to the last appointment the council made some years ago. I think by the code, we have 45 days from today to actually fill that appointment. And we're going to, we have to do a letter of interest. How's that worded, Cam?
I don't think that you have to do anything, but I think the process that was followed before and that you may decide to adopt is to send out information to the public and
Right.
allow people to apply, and then the council will consider the person who will be appointed by these existing council members from a registered voter of the town.
Right. Yeah, we wanted everybody to have a fair shake. Anybody who was interested, of course, be considered. And what was it? We've got to file a petition within 15 days of today, right?
Right, and that's, the separate issue is that the person will be appointed for an interim period until there is an election. Within 15 days of the vacancy, we have to file a petition with the circuit court. The circuit court will order the election. Historically, it's been on the May election date that it would, that position would ordinarily be filled as. So that person will serve in the interim. If that person's elected, then they will serve out the rest of the term. If someone else is elected, then they will serve out the rest of the term at that point.
All right.
But I do need a motion that I be authorized to draft and file the petition on
Okay.
council's
Okay.
behalf
Fair
to
enough.
seek an election.
Fair enough. And so just to clarify, we are going to advertise so that anybody who's interested can put their name in the hat. Do have to be a citizen, a registered voter in the town of Abingdon, of course, to be and serve on council. The advertisement, Kim, when are we starting that?
It will go out tonight.
All right, so advertisement will be put out tonight into the local media, and like I said, we'll be accepting all applications. It is my wish that we get lots of applications. I think that would be fantastic, have lots of interest in the position. But we do have 45 days, of course, from today to actually appoint somebody to the 5th seat of council. Having said all of that, did that clarify pretty much?
Hear what Cam said.
Oh, okay.
About 15 days of-
Yeah, so we have to file, we have to.
Can you speak into
Yeah,
the
you're fine. So we've got to file a petition with the circuit court about the actual election date. And I think historically it's been May the next year. So whoever is appointed, whatever day we appoint them, which will be soon, of course, they'll serve until May. We'll have to have a special election in May, and then the person that's elected in May, and it could be the same person, could be somebody different, will serve until the next election, which will be the following year. And then we'll get back into the 3-2 election of 3 council members and then 2 years later. Does that make sense, all of that? Okay, excellent. But we will be advertising soon. And like Kim said, we do need to have a motion to give him the right to draft a letter so that we can get an opinion from file a petition with the court. Is that correct?
Draft and file a petition with the Circuit Court of Washington County.
There you go. So do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we give Cam the
Authority?
to file within circuit court.
All right. So we've got a motion to give Cam authority to draft and submit a motion of appeal to the circuit court. And do I have a second?
A petition, but yes.
Petition,
She
sorry.
already got that. She got it down right.
Sorry about that.
second.
And second it. All right. Do we have any discussion? All right. Hearing none. Kim, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Anderson,
Aye.
Ms. Billiard,
Aye.
Ms. Quetch,
Aye.
and Mayor Webb.
Aye. Last but not least on the agenda, and I don't think, we'd all sort of talked about it earlier, I don't think we're gonna go into closed session or anything like that for this appointment. Do we feel comfortable moving forward with appointing, someone to planning commission or 2 people to planning commission? I'll kind of leave that up to you guys. We had 2 applicants, I believe, for planning commission. And again, we can talk about it in open session. We don't have to go into closed session. It just kind of, 3, okay, I apologize, 3 applicants for planning
Yeah.
commission. So if you guys feel comfortable about nominating
Well,
2.
I'm gonna stay on.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're the
This is
council,
the
yeah,
vacancy
yeah,
that
you're-
was created
we're-
by you, and then the one by me.
Exactly.
So there's actually 2 positions.
2 positions available. We had
Yeah.
3 applicants total for those 2 spots. So if,
Can, do we have to do it tonight?
do we have to have those people appointed tonight?
I have a question for Jason. Unless we run into quorum issues, no, I mean, just, you don't have to, but we got 7 people on the planning commission, I should know this, I was on the plan. I mean, it just
7
means that you have
total.
5.
5 instead of 7.
You know, if 3, you know, you have to have at least, well, you have to have at least 4 for a quorum, then is it 4 of the 7 can, or is it of the existing members of the planning commission?
The existing members.
It's, okay, so as long as you had 3 there, then that would suffice a quorum, I think would be okay then.
Okay.
The planning commission's not gonna meet prior to the next work session anyway.
You know, that is true, we could make the appointment at the next
Okay,
work session.
yeah,
if we wanted
let's
to.
do that.
If we
So
wanna
you
do that,
guys-
we can do that.
Is that what I'm hearing from the council? Then we'll
Okay.
table it to the work session?
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
all right.
we'll do that.
So-
Tim, if you can whip that on
We
the
need to
agenda.
take action, just table. All right, so that being said, I think we're at the end of the agenda, so I would adjourn the meeting. Right, you know, we